Fire Knight's Castle. It is one of the more important dungeons here in Raid Shadow Legends, and it can be tricky to farm, especially in the early game or mid game, or if you are a free to play player. Now, it's really important to get to stage 20 of Fire Knight's Castle and be able to farm that consistently, not just for the better 5-star and 6-star gear drops, but also because that's the most efficient stage for completing dungeon tournaments for things like the fusion event that we have going on right now. So in today's video, I am going to show you a number of free-to-play friendly team compositions and champions that you can use to farm stage 20 of Fire Knight. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just a quick note, I am currently playing King Arthur Legends Rise, and I have to say I am really enjoying this new game. Now, if you are curious about the game, I have already made several videos on the channel. If you do a quick search for King Arthur, I'm sure you'll find them. And if you ultimately decide that you want to try out the game, it would help me out greatly if you used my download link in the description of this video or any of my King Arthur videos. As always, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Thanks for all the support. Now let's get back to that Fire Knight. Here we are on stage 20 of Fire Knight's Castle. And if you need a full description of this fight, I highly recommend reading the boss guide. These are very good. Gives you a detailed description of every one of the boss's skills, and then some tips for building a good team composition. But for this video, I'm just going to break the fight down into 3 phases. The first phase is the wave phase. You have 2 rounds of minions that you have to defeat before you get to the boss. The important aspect of this phase is to make sure everybody is alive and arrives at the boss with their cooldowns intact, because the second phase is the shield phase. The boss has a shield which has 10 stacks here at stage 20, so you need to hit it 10 times to break that shield, and therefore you want your cooldowns when you enter phase 2 so that you can break that shield as easily as possible. And then you enter phase 3 when the shield is down, which is the phase where you can actually land debuffs on the boss and damage him for real. So that's the fight with the boss. Now, there are several approaches here, but I'm going to focus on the most efficient, fastest, and safest strategy, which is to turn meter control Fyro so that he literally never gets a chance to go. That's the goal. You break his shield, you push his turn meter back, and then he basically sits there while you wail on him until he is defeated. Now, we've got a lot of champions in Raid these days, so this fight has actually gotten easier, and this strategy has gotten easier over time. There are more and more rares, epics, even legendaries and mythicals who do a great job in this dungeon. So right now we're going to go look at my roster of champions. It may be a little bit different than yours, but we're going to look at my roster. I'm going to start to theory craft some teams so that you can see how it's done. Here we are in my roster, and you can see Lady Mikage here, who is a free champion and is absolutely fantastic into this fight. But I want to focus a little bit more on early game and mid game champions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my filter here, and I'm going to just focus on epics and rares. And we'll go 6-star and 5-star because I'm not going to build any new champions for this video. And then I'm also going to eliminate magic affinity champions for right now because they are weak affinity into this boss. Now, you can use some magic affinity champions. There are a few that are still very good, even though they're weak affinity. The ones that I can think of would be Seeker, Apothecary, Allure, although the weak hits hurt Allure a little bit. Maybe Royal Guard, because he's got a quad hitter on his A2, I believe. So there are a few champions who are still going to help you break that shield and potentially control the turn meter, or like Seeker and an Apothecary who just speed you up, and so you don't care that they're weak affinity, because they can do that job just as well in any affinity. So there are some magic affinity champions you can use, but I'm going to avoid them for right now. So this is my roster of champions available that I'm considering free to play. And in fact, you know what? I'm even going to get rid of voids. Let's just forget the voids in terms of epics at least, because Coldheart is probably a champion we're going to want to consider. So I guess I'll leave the voids up for now. But okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're going fast enough. We're going to take a look at the Raid Stages tool in just a minute so you can see the stats that we need. But speed is the most important stat in all of Raid Shadow Legends, and it's especially important for this strategy in the Fire Knight. We need to lap the Fire Knight several times over if we can, so the faster we go, the better off we are. And that means we're going to start with a speed aura. Now here I have probably just 2 or 3 speed auras available to me. I have Deacon Armstrong. He's also going to give me turn meter fill, some decrease defense. He's got a double hitter on his A1, so he is excellent for this fight. He's absolutely fantastic for this fight. We've also got a Kemptum. I have a Kemptum. He is a Void Epic, and I said I was going to avoid that. But if you have a Kemptum, he does have a triple hitter on his A1, and he's got an all-battle speed aura, which is what you need here. And then I think I have one more, I should, which is High Katoon. This is a champion everybody should have. Again, nice speed aura. High Katoon is actually very good for this fight. Remember how I talked about 3 phases? She is excellent into 2 of the phases. She is really good into the wave phase, and she's really good into the boss fight phase. She's not so great at helping you to break the shield, but it's okay that not everybody is awesome at breaking the shield. As long as you have enough hits in your composition overall, then you can bring in a champion like High Katoon. And she's not bad into phase 2 because she gives you that turn meter fill and increased speed, which is going to help you lap the boss and get more hits in a shorter amount of time. So she's got that slow potential on her A1, which is really nice. Again, turn meter pushback. It's an AoE turn meter pushback on her A3, which is good for the waves and the boss. So I have to use at least one of these 3 champions to be my aura, and potentially I want to use more than one. So I'm going to avoid a Kemptum. I'm going to say probably going to use Deacon Armstrong and High Katoon just to make sure that I am going fast enough and have enough turn meter control. Now, after that, I need to worry about multi-hitters. I need to get as many hits as I can because I don't want to just break the shield. I want to break the shield and then be able to do more stuff. I need to push that turn meter back. So I'm going to go ahead and filter this with some turn meter decrease here just to see who I have that does that. So we're going to go to negative effects, decrease, turn meter. And these are my turn meter decrease champions. So there are some excellent options here. Fane is okay. She's got a 50% chance of stealing 5% of the target's turn meter twice. That's not a lot of turn meter pushback. It is a double hitter, which is nice, and it's also got she's also got a triple hitter here with decreased defense and weaken. So she is very good for Fire Knight, but I need a little bit more turn meter control than that. Maneater is actually really good here. He's only got a single hit. It has an AoE decrease attack, but it only hits one enemy once. But he does have a 100% turn meter steal. So if I could break the shield with everybody else, he's going to help me keep that turn meter just locked down. But right now, I'm looking for multi-hits. Ruella is an absolute MVP in this fight. She literally brings everything you need in her kit. It's crazy good. So she's got a triple hitter on her A1, which has a chance of stealing 5% of the target's turn meter 3 times. It's a 100% chance if you crit. So you want to build her with a 100% crit or at least 70% crit because she does have an increased crit rate and some turn meter fill on her A3. So this could potentially steal 15% of the turn meter. Remember, a steal means she also gets the turn meter. So she's not just pushing back the boss's turn meter, she's filling her own. And this is a triple hitter, so very good at breaking the shield. Plus, she has a second triple hitter on her A2, which brings all the debuffs you basically want in this fight. Decreased defense, weaken, those are both going to help you kill that boss faster. But the big one is the decreased speed there, the third one, because that means he's less likely to fill up his turn meter and put his shield back up. Now, this only has, I think, a 70% chance of landing on each hit. But if you figure that out, it ends up being something like a 96% chance that she's going to land that decreased speed. And again, she has strong affinity here, so you don't have to worry about her weak hitting or, missing her crits on her A1 or anything like that. Plus, she does a decent amount of damage. So we're definitely going to bring Ruella into the fight. Another really good champion here that I want to mention is actually Fenshi. If you have a Fenshi built, he is phenomenal for this. He's got a triple hitter on his A1 with a decreased speed there. So if you need to get that decreased speed in there somewhere, this is a very good skill to do that. And then his A2 is also a triple hitter, and each hit has a 75% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. So this skill can potentially take away 45% of the turn meter of the Fire Knight. And then finally, he has a double hitter on his A3, and this will place poisons and ignore defense for poisons. Now, the poisons probably aren't going to proc because the boss is never going to get a turn. So you could just turn off this skill if you want, or you could use it to do a little bit of extra damage if you have some poisons up there for the ignored defense. outside of these champions, certainly Coldheart is an MVP. She's got a quad hitter on her A1 that is massive. She's also got this huge Heartseeker, which not only hits really hard, but decreases the target's turn meter by 100%. So if you have a Coldheart, she should be on the team. And then, there are some other good champions here. I like Lightsworn. Triple hitter on the A1 decreases the target's turn meter by 10%. That's not 10% per hit. That's 10% overall. That's not bad. He also has a decreased speed, and this is a 100% chance of landing. So if you want a really reliable decreased speed, that one there is good. But he doesn't have a ton of turn meter decrease, and he doesn't have any debuff, so he's not going to speed up the fight at all. So if you do bring Lightsworn, make sure you're bringing somebody like Ruella or somebody like Fane in order to debuff the boss a little bit more. Now, one way to get a lot of extra hits into your team is to use an ally attacker. So I'm going to go ahead and look for a positive effect ally attack and see what kind of ally attackers we have here. I just have two. There are only really two good ally attackers that are epics. There's a third one who's not bad, actually, which is Kinagashi. So if you have Kinagashi, she does have a double hit on her A1, and each hit has a 40% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. So this is a decent A1 for Fire Knight. And then she has a really small ally attack. Teams up with one random ally to attack a single enemy, and also fills the turn meter of all allies by 15%, which is not to be ignored. That's a nice little secondary effect of this skill. So if you need an ally attacker who's decent and you don't have Farrakhan the Fat or Morag Bronzelac, Kinagashi is kind of a budget version of these champions. She's also the only reliable epic reviver in the Shadowkin faction, so you're not going to regret building her to at least 50, and she can probably get the job done at 50, honestly, because hopefully none of the enemies are really going to get a lot of turns, and if you build her fast and tanky with a little bit of accuracy, that's what you're going to need here. But the best ally attacker is probably Farrakhan the Fat, because he's going to bring 4 allies into the fight. And Morag is second best because she's going to bring herself and 2 allies. So that's 3 allies into the fight. And these are going to help you break the shield. If you have both of them, run both of them. If you have 2 copies of Farrakhan, run that. You can definitely do 2 ally attackers. And again, remember, if you're using like a Farrakhan the Fat and you have a Coldheart on the team, she's got a quad hitter on her A1. If you got Venshi, he's got a triple hitter on the A1. So you're getting all of those attacks to help break the shield. And then anybody with an A1 that decreases turn meter is really good as well, because once that shield's down, those attacks keep hitting and they reduce the turn meter right away. Okay, so that is the foundation of our team. And again, there are a lot of champions here that you could use. It helps to have somebody who does some wave clear. If you're struggling with the waves, there are some things you can do. You can bring in an AoE slow. That's useful. AoE freeze or stun is really useful. So for instance, you could bring in somebody like, where is he? You could bring in somebody like Hoskarul, whose A2 has a 75% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn and decreases the turn meters of enemies under stun debuffs by 15%. So even though he's only got a single hitter on his A1, sometimes you just need one champion to control the waves for you so nobody dies, and you can save your cooldowns for that first phase of the boss, phase 2 of the fight. So consider that. I mean, you could certainly use a Skull Crown. You could use somebody like that to get some wave clear, an AoE damage dealer. You could use a Sinesha. She doesn't hit super hard, but she does have an A1 that is an AoE. You could even use somebody who maybe is more like an arena nuker, like a Genbo the Dishonored. He does have a double hitter on the A1, and his A2 is a really hard-hitting nuke, and that's going to help you clear the waves. A rare option here might be Soulbond Bowyer, who has an AoE. She's actually really good for this fight, surprisingly, because she helps you get through the waves, but then she also has this really hard-hitting nuke here on the A2, and then the A3 has a 100% chance of fully depleting the target's turn meter. So she hits hard in the waves, she hits hard in the boss, and she has turn meter control. She doesn't have any multiple hits, but everything else in her kit is really good. So consider what you have. If you don't have the specific champions that I'm going to use, there are probably some epics or rares that you can use to put together a good squad for Fire Knight 20. Now that we have an idea of some of the champions we want to use, we also want to think about how to build these champions. So I've come here to the Raid Stages tool on hellhades.com, and as you can see, I put in the Fire Knight's Castle Stage 20 of normal. This gives me all of the stats for all of the enemies in this fight. And the two stats I am worried about are speed and resistance, because I need to be faster than everybody quite a bit. And then I also want to make sure I have enough accuracy to land all of my debuffs and turn meter control effects. So as you can see, the fastest enemy in this fight is actually this Preserver at 102. The boss himself is just a speed of 100. So I want to go at least twice as fast as every enemy in this fight. So we're looking at a minimum of 205 speed for every one in our composition. Now, that doesn't mean you need 205 speed in each champion's build, because remember, if we use a speed aura of 19%, we're going to be getting some additional speed. But I don't want to rely on the turn meter fills and the speed buffs, because those aren't always consistent. Sometimes you don't have them open when you enter a new round. So you want to make sure that you have at least 205 with the speed aura. So I would say 190 is sort of a safe number. If you have 190 speed on every champion in your team composition, you're going to guarantee that they are at least twice as fast as every enemy. Now, if you can get faster, that's great. You want to be faster, because likely at that speed, at 190 plus, you're still going to struggle sometimes unless you're bringing some crowd control for the waves, because the waves, you have to kill them fast or you have to crowd control them. Those are basically your options. So consider that when you are putting together your team composition. Are you running really close to the minimum? If so, maybe you want to bring in some crowd control like a Hoska rule. If you're running a lot faster, maybe you don't need that and you can just bring in more damage and you're going to clear the wave faster. Now, the other number that we were talking about was the accuracy, and the boss has the most resistance. He has 200 resistance, and this orange number here, this 225, that's the accuracy you need to land your debuffs 95% of the time against the boss. So we want a minimum of 225 accuracy. You could certainly go over that number a little bit, but try to hit at least 225 on anybody who's going to land a debuff or a turn meter decrease or any negative effect on the boss. Okay, so now we actually come to the fight, and we're going to put together a team here. I am going to start with one of my speed leads, so I want to just go ahead and do this filter here again. Rares and epics, 6-star and 5-star, and we're not going to use any magic affinity, although, like I said, you could use a few of them. So now we're going to start with, let's just go with Haikatoon, because Haikatoon is going to, oh, it doesn't matter. We're going to do Haikatoon and Deacon. This is going to give us 2 turn meter fills, 2 turn meter decreases, a slow, a leech for the boss, a double hitter on Deacon, and a decreased defense. All of those are good things. Plus, they're both relatively tanky, so I don't have to worry about them taking too much damage in the waves. This is going to give us a lot of speed, that increased speed buff as well. This is going to be awesome. This is a really nice start. Now, Deacon has a double hitter on his A1, and Haikatoon only has single hits. So they're not bringing a lot of hits. That means everybody else on my team has to bring a lot of hits. So I'm going to go ahead and bring an ally attacker. I'm going to go with Morag, just in case, you don't have Farrakhan the Fat. Farrakhan the Fat is probably the better of the two, but she's a little bit better in waves. She does have a nice AoE. She hits relatively hard. And then also that is going to give us an opportunity to get at least one ally attack in that's decent against the boss. Now, the minimum number of hits this ally attack is going to bring is 5, because if Morag goes, she has a double hitter on her A1, so that's 2 hits. Deacon has 2 hits, and then Haikatoon has 1. And everybody else I'm going to bring have more hits than that. So this is a minimum of 5 hits against the boss's shield. And then what I want to do is I want to bring in my Cold Heart, and then I just need to bring in somebody else that is going to hopefully help me with waves and maybe bring in some more hits. So I could go with Neldor. Neldor would be absolutely fantastic. He is an MVP for this fight. He doesn't have turn meter control, though, and I'm thinking I've got 3 turn meter controllers here. This is probably enough, but honestly, I think I'm just going to bring the absolute MVP of this fight, which would be Ruella. Where is Ruella? She should be here somewhere. There she is. Okay. Now, one of the things you want to think about when you are building your team composition is the ally attack. When allies attack, they attack in order of their placement here. So whoever's in the leader spot will attack first. Whoever's in this spot is the next one. And so I'm going to go ahead and put my biggest hitters there, I guess. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll do Morag back here. And then I want Ruella at the back. And the reason I want Ruella at the back is because I want the shield to break before she lands her hits if possible. Because remember, her A1 is turn meter control. So if the shield is down before she runs out of hits, she will not only break the shield, she'll push the turn meter back on the counter, on the ally attack. So that would be the optimal situation. So this looks like a really good team. Again, remember, we need the certain speeds, we need the certain accuracies, but I am bringing 3, 7, 8, 9, 12 hits on A1s. On one cycle of A1s, I've got 12 hits, plus the ally attack. So I'm definitely going to break the shield, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn meter control the boss. So my only concern is whether or not I get through the waves healthy, right? Because if anybody dies here, I'm going to have trouble with that boss. So I want to make sure that this works. Okay, so I've come into the team setup in the AI to make sure I'm doing this the right way. Now with Deacon, I can let him do round 1 however he wants. In round 2, though, I want him to turn his time compression off after using it the first time. I don't want him to use it a second time and then not have it available for the boss, because I need his time compression to make everybody faster. So here, what's actually going to happen in round 3 is he's going to come around to his time compression really fast because I'm using Haikatoon's Rally the Horde. And so I'm actually going to use a double hit early to help break the shield to make sure that when the ally attack goes off, Ruella actually gets some turn meter decrease from her A1. As far as Ruella is concerned, she's going to open with her A2 on round 1. She can do whatever she wants, basically. I don't want her to use this a second time on round 2, though, because I want to make sure that she has the decrease speed available once the shield is down. And then what I'm going to have her do on round 3 is, you can see she's running fairly fast. So I think she's the 3rd fastest champion. I want her to help break the shield, and then she can use this to get that decreased speed once the shield is down. As far as Morag is concerned, it doesn't really matter what she does other than I want her to open with the ally attack here. And so what that means is in round 2, she can open with it, but then I want to turn it off. In fact, I don't even want to do that really, because this is her AoE and that's better. So let's just turn it off entirely, and we'll have this be the opener in each round. That makes more sense. Let's just do that. As far as Coldheart is concerned, she can basically do what she wants in round 1. We want to turn her Heartseeker off in round 2. We don't want her to use that. In round 3, we want her to... She's going very fast. She's one of the fastest champions. So she's going to open with her A1 to get that 4-hitter on the shield. And then she's going to prioritize the Heartseeker. Now, you could use her A2 if you want against the boss, but I typically turn it off. I don't think she uses it on auto anyway. Like, I don't think she does. I think her AI against Fire Knight is very good. So she basically A1s when the shield is up and Heartseekers when the shield is down. But this is the way you would want to make sure it works anyway. And then as far as Haikatoon is concerned, she always should open with her increased speed. I guess it could be default here. That's fine. Here we want to turn it off. Yeah, so it's going to be her opener, and then she's not going to use it because we want her to open with it here against the boss. And then it should probably be the primary skill anyway, so it's going to be her first choice. But she can also push back turn meter with the Shamanic Lightning, so if you need that pushback, it's only a 75% chance, but it's 15% turn meter decrease. So you could also have her go into that. If you know that the shield is going to be down, you could try that instead. It's entirely up to you. So that is the AI. Now, one of the things you may be noticing is my speeds are crazy high. We're over 300 here, 262, 232, 282, and 313. But there are a couple of things to know about this. First of all, not all of that is in the builds, because if we come to my Great Hall, you'll notice, first of all, I have a maxed out Great Hall, and then simultaneously for Fire Knight, I have built up Fire Knight for Fire Knight hard mode. So I do have 20 additional speed here from my area bonuses. And again, I don't think you need these speeds to do this fight, but the slower you are, the more you might want to bring in some crowd control. By the way, I'm going to go over some free champions, some legendaries as well, that I think are very good for this fight later on. So if you are struggling to just put together a team of epics and rares, you can mix in some of the free legendaries and they can be very good. But all right, so if we go back to the dungeon and look at this team composition that we were just going to try out, not that one, but this one. In terms of the stats here, I think what you probably want for your fastest champion is somewhere around a minimum of probably about 240 or 250 speed. Potentially more. Like if you could get 260 to 280 on your Deacon or your Haikatoon, I would definitely do that, and the more the better. And then the other turn meter filler should not be much slower. It is only a 15% turn meter increase, and that's a decent amount. Like you could spread them out by 30 speed. But I would say, let's say if my Deacon is at 250, my Haikatoon should be like at 240 at least, because you want them to be leading the pack. They're the ones who are speeding up everybody else. Everybody else, like I said, could be running around 190 and they would be fine. So if you have those speeds, I think you'll be able to take it down. But again, if you struggle, you're probably going to struggle in the waves. And then there are some champions we'll talk about that you can bring in to help you with the waves, besides Hoskrul, because Hoskrul is great, but maybe you want somebody else. Okay, so this should be good. I'm going to go ahead and click this and let this run full auto, and we'll see what happens here. Again, the probably most concerning thing would be the wave. If the wave gets a turn, they're going to hit somebody. Most of my champions are built decently tanky. We do have the potential of the strengthen buff from Morag, so you could also mess with the AI to put that out at a particular time. But it looks like this wave is not going to get a chance to go at all, which is pretty nice. And then we'll see what happens here in wave 2, because remember, we turn off a lot of skills in wave 2, and I think wave 2 is the tankier wave anyway. So let's see if we'll probably take a hit or two here, it looks like. But hopefully it won't be too bad. No, we're still doing okay. That Ruella A1 is really nice. So we did get hit twice, but as you can see, not a ton of damage. And one of the reasons not a ton of damage is because we don't have any weak affinity champions here, right? We're all strong affinity or just the one neutral Cold Heart. So we're not taking a lot of damage. Now you'll notice we broke the shield really quickly here because there are only 10 stacks. And now we got that slowdown. We're pushing that turn meter back, and this boss should never get a chance to go. Cold Heart does the majority of the damage. Morag and Ruella do respectable amounts as well. And then Deacon and Haikatoon are just here to make sure that you're lapping the boss as often as possible. Of course, both of them also have turn meter control here. So we actually have all 5 champions are providing turn meter control, actually, now that I think about it, because even Morag is bringing turn meter control through Ruella, right? Because Ruella's A1 is turn meter control. So no problem getting that boss under control and then killing it. So it's going to be a little bit faster than 2 minutes. It might be slower for you depending on your gear and your damage numbers. So I haven't talked about any legendaries yet, but I do want to talk specifically about some free legendaries that you get that you can use here. So one of the first champions, obviously, is going to be Haikatoon. Not a legendary, but a free champion. Absolutely fantastic in this fight. But the next really, really good one is Syl of the Drakes at 180 days. So if you passed 180 days, you should absolutely be able to crush stage 20 of Fire Knight, because you've got Syl. She is golden in this. So why is Syl of the Drakes so good here? First of all, you think her A1, well, it's only a single hit, so it's not hugely valuable. But it does have a chance of landing at decreased speed. When it's booked, that's a 40% chance. It's not bad to have a backup decreased speed. And it's also a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. Now, she is also magic affinity, but the reality is she just adds so much to your team. This is really going to help you out, because not only do you have her passive heal and her revive in case somebody does drop, you also have her AoE stun. Now, this is a double hitter, and each hit has a 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 2 turns. So it's about a 50% chance on each enemy, less the fact that you might weak hit. So she's not going to stun everybody, but if the enemy gets through, you've still got that heal, that revive to keep your team going. And again, she's good into the boss as well. You can open with her double hitter to help break the shield, and then let her use her A1 to help turn meter control if you need. Also, she is great on the way up. So if you are not yet at 20 and you're trying to work your way up to 20 or even past 20 to 25, she's great basically in every affinity, but you can definitely use her there. Now, another free champion that you can get that is very good in this fight is Arbiter. Arbiter is absolutely fantastic in PvE, especially in the kind of classic dungeons up to stage 20. She does have a double hitter on her A1, and you've got a chance of landing a weaken, And because she's Void Affinity, she's not going to weak hit. So very good against the boss. That massive turn meter fill and increase attack is going to help you with the waves. Remember that her A2 also heals if your HP drops low. So that can be useful against the waves as well. And then, of course, she's got that AoE revive, and she's normally just really fast. So she's going to help speed up your entire team. So if you don't want to use High Khatun, you could potentially use Arbiter with your Deacon, let's say. Now you're getting an increased attack, which High Khatun is not giving you, and you're getting a 30% turn meter fill instead of a 15% turn meter fill and a increased speed buff, and then you get the double hitter on the A1. Another really good free champion that you may want to consider if you have fused him is Razin Scarhide. He's got a triple hitter on his A1 that's going to help you break that shield. He's got an A2 that lands a decreased defense and weaken, so that's going to help you debuff the boss if you need to. And then he's also got really good wave control. This may be the only wave control you need, especially if you also have a slow or a Deacon with a little bit of turn meter drop. This decreases the turn meter of the wave by 100%. Now, chances are, because of the long cooldown, you can only use it once. You're probably going to want to use it on the second wave. You can leave it available for the boss, because if it does come back, he will fully deplete the turn meter of the boss. So this is another very good champion for Fire Knight, who is absolutely free. I'm going to keep going because there are more free champions who are awesome here. At 270 days, you get Vizix. Vizix is awesome for this fight. She's great for the waves because she has an AoE slow and she has an AoE provoke. She's also inherently tanky. And then she's got a double hitter that can push back the turn meter of the boss by up to 30% per turn. So great with ally attackers, but also just good on her own. And again, Void Affinity, so she's not going to weak hit on her decreased speed on the boss or on the waves, and she's not going to weak hit on her A1. So another totally free champion that is god tier in standard Fire Knight stages. You know, not hard mode necessarily, because the turn meter decrease no longer works there. But against regular Fire Knight, absolutely fantastic. Mithrala is also awesome here. If you have her and you don't think about her, she has a double hitter on her A1. She's going to help you break that shield. The increased defense, increased attack is nice here. You can use that to do more damage or to keep yourself alive against the waves. But the really nice thing is the Hex. If you're struggling with wave control, get that Hex out there, and then you're going to get petrifications. You've got the cleanse, the strengthen, the shield buff that's going to keep everybody alive. So you don't necessarily need a healer. Sometimes a shielder or a buffer is enough. Mithrala does a great job here. And I don't know when you get your free champions. Some of these champions may come late in the life of your account, or some of them may come early. And if you have any of these champions, you should certainly consider using them in place of some of the epics and rares that we were talking about earlier. Oh, I did forget one other great free champion. And Yukari here is actually great not only for standard Fire Knight, but also for Fire Knight hard mode. His kit is really good for this dungeon. He's got a double hitter on his A1. His A2 is a 100% chance of decreased speed and a 100% chance of stealing 100% of the boss's turn meter. So he can literally turn that turn meter from 100% to 0% and then get an extra turn, basically reducing this to a 2-turn cooldown. And then he also has an AoE freeze and turn meter reduction for the waves. So if you are struggling with waves, he's good. If you're struggling with the boss, he's good. I just wanted to shout him out. Okay, that is it for this one. Let me know in the comments below, did this help you out with Fire Knight 20? Let me know the compositions that you're using or that you're going to try out. And as always, thanks for hanging out. I have been Colred. I will see you in another video soon.